Parallel worlds. Is parallel universe theory a science fiction? According to a mathematical discovery by Oxford scientists, there is a breakthrough which is described as one of the most important developments in the history of science. This is very encouraging indeed, since parallel worlds belief is a very rich substance of ancient mythology and literature. And since I am an advocate of searching for the truth within the core of mythology, which I believe is one of the major tools containing secret history of humanity and planet Earth. To get back to modern days, one of the pioneers of this theory was the famous US physicist Hugh Everett in 1950. He proposed that in many worlds universe, whenever a physical possibility is explored, the world splits off for each alternative outcome, each played in different universe, leading to alternative scenarios equal to the multiple universes splits. The theory helps in making more sense in trying to answer to many mysteries surrounding quantum mechanics. But more interestingly, it helps in making more sense of how a full record of our deeds may be archived by super beings for later use in our existential advancement. In other words, it explains the day of judgment, where people are held accountable for their earthly deeds. What may be understood from this is that if one commits to any act in our three-dimensional world, this actual act will be archived in the plasmatic memory and stored for replay in another alternative dimension. Currently there is a new research from Oxford gaining more grounds and offering a new mathematical answer deducing the main objections to such theory. This research reveals that Dr. Everett was on the right path to suggest the multiverse theory. The basics of quantum mechanics are that particle positions can only be identified after observation, or else it remains in its superposition uncertain state spinning up and down, changing position. According to quantum mechanics, unobserved particles are described by wave functions representing a set of multiple probable states. When an observer makes a measurement, the particle then settles down into one of these multiple options, which is somewhat how the multiple universe theory can be explained. The actual scientific research into multi-universe stemmed from the arguments of time travel possibility and the manipulation of space-time in order to solve its probabilistic hindering and outcome. The whole idea of the existence of other dimensions is regarded to be the core of belief to heaven and hell concept to many religions and ancient cultures, and that is why it is very crucial to further research this theory to find the common ground between mythology, theology and modern science. What may be learnt from ancient texts, some of it which is regarded divine to hundreds of millions of Earth inhabitants? The two sunsets and risings and more is a proof of parallel worlds with similar sun, and there is an indication in the Quran that there is more than one world, though interpretation varied whether the word al-alamin stood for two as in al-alamain or plural worlds as in al-alamin. Then there is another verse in Quran that mentions the creation of 7 skies by Allah and from earth similar to that, in Surat al-Talaq. Verse 12. God is he who created 7 firmaments, and of the earth a similar number. This is a very precise reference indicating the existence of 6 more Earth-like planets, and by saying Earth-like this presumably includes the inclusion of similar nature and life form. Having said that, I need to hint to the obvious, which is, if there are so many Earth-like planets, how come none of them is observed during all of the efforts exerted by man ever since his creation to observe and study the stars? And since there is a reference for more than one sunrise and more than one sunset, that in itself would, and without the benefit of a doubt, lead us to conclude that those 6 remaining Earth-like planets are coexisting within parallel worlds to our world. Then there is another very interesting verse from Quran in Surat Al-An'am, verse 133. Thy Lord is self-sufficient, full of mercy. If it were his will, he could destroy you, and in your place appoint whom he will as your successors, even as he raised you up from the posterity of other people. This is another clear indication referring to a mixture of races, which leads me to believe that what was mentioned in the book of Enoch, the Emerald Tablets, and other ancient references did refer to a hybrid race made out of earthly Homo sapiens and some other alien race that shares with us similarity in biophysical characteristics. It is worth mentioning another reference in the Quran relating to Satan attempts to share with mankind children and other earthly wealth within our dimension as well. It says, in Surat al-Isra, verse 64, and arouse those whom thou canst among them, with thy seductive voice. Make assaults on them with thy cavalry and thy infantry. Mutually share with them wealth and children, and make promises to them. But Satan promises them nothing but deceit. Nevertheless, the belief of more than one world is shared by almost all known and recognized major religions regardless of race or creed, in addition to its being equally common by ancient mythology and legend. After all, most of our kind believe in heaven and hell and the day of judgment, and most of us believe in good and evil, demons and angels, spirits and souls, the after-death or afterlife, and the underworld. These and many other terms are used by us since ancient times only to describe in one way or the other the basics of a shared belief of other worlds, other dimensions and extraterrestrial beings. The pharaohs of Egypt preserved a very rich ancient culture of the afterlife. That Book of the Dead is but one of several to enrich it. Going back to Quran, there is a reference for the god of the two sunrises and sunsets, Rabbul Mashriqain wa Rabbul Maghribain in Surat al-Rahman. There is also another verse that refers to more than two sunrises and sunsets. It refers to a pluralistic perception of that. It says Rabbul Mashriq wa Rabbul Maghrib in Surat al-Safat, Surat al-Araf, and in Surat al-Ma'ariyah. Surat al-Rahman, verse 17. He is Lord of the two Easts and Lord of the two Wests. Surat al-Safat, verse 5. Lord of the heavens and of the earth and all between them, and Lord of every point at the rising of the sun. Surat al-Ma'ariyah, verse 40. Now I do call to witness the Lord of all points in the east and the west that we can certainly. Surat al-Araf, verse 137. And we made the people, considered weak and of no account, inheritors of lands in both east and west, lands whereon we sent down our blessings. What makes it so intriguing in here is that Allah was addressing both the jinn and mankind at the same time, as if he was hinting to the nature of which they coexist and interact together, having a common fate and destiny created for servitude. The mentioning of jinn before mankind indicates the capability of jinn to exit from the gravitational force fields before mankind. Therefore, they were mentioned before mankind. In the same surat, and while still addressing jinn and mankind, Allah indicates of the possibility for both kinds, jinn and man, to exit from the gravitational force fields of the skies and earth with appropriate science. Surat al-Rahman, verse 33. O ye assembly of jinns and men! If it be ye can pass beyond the zones of the heavens and the earth, pass ye. Not without authority shall ye be able to pass. Note, the term's field was plural, the skies were plural, but the earth was singular. That leaves me with no doubts that the other Earth-like planets are coexisting within other dimensions parallel to ours, sharing with us the same sun and nature. The sun at such worlds might reflect different rays and colors. Light rays could be purple or ultraviolet, for there is a historical reference I once read in a book recording strange incidents, one of which took place in a Spanish farm several hundred years ago. It stated that while the farmers and field workers of a specific landlord were working the fields, they suddenly found a boy and a girl emerging to them out of the void. They looked like human but with some strange features. They spoke an unknown and unrecognized language or dialect. They could not eat any of our food, though the boy died while the girl managed to live on beans for several months, enough to learn few words from the educated daughter of the landlord, and tell her story, claiming to have come from another world of purple to ultraviolet sun, and that she and her brother were actually fleeing from a bad person who was chasing them. They entered into a cave and suddenly went into a portal bringing them to our world. Just as important is the saying of Jesus, Psalm 23, "For though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil." It is analytically clear that Jesus refers in here to another dimension that exists between death and life, the valley of the shadow of death. It is very crucial in here to pay extra attention to the word valley. A valley exists between two mountains bordering it. Could that be an indication to another dimensional world bordered by life and death as other parallel dimensions? And the sun rises on a new dawn. There is one sun in our solar system, yet there are many dimensions and parallel worlds, and there is you and me pursuing the truth.